Episode 604, Abstract Atmosphere.
The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. This episode is sponsored by Renegade Game Studios. Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them.
In today's show, Mandi calls us maggots, my Autobots roll out, and we chat about abstract games in the Victory Point segment. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandi Hutchinson.
Oh, I can't wait. Amanda Ann, I cannot wait.
Oh, I think people are going, what are you talking about? But don't worry, we will fill you in very soon.
Yeah, Mandi had a lot of fun practicing her lines, let's put it that way, on me. Relished it a little too much, methinks.
I know, it just brought me back. It brought me back.
Well, welcome everybody to our little podcast about board games and card games, and most of all, the people who play them. Mandi, I know I can't hold you back. I know you want to tell me all about this horror game, which is so your jam.
And
so just spill.
I know. So I've only played it once because I'm doing a preview. So I don't want to go into a review of it or anything yet. I've only played it once. Wouldn't be fair. But I'm doing a preview that'll be coming out on the Dice Tower. And it's for a Kickstarter that's coming up. I think it's May 16th. And the game is called Hall of Horrors. So I was approached about it because everybody knows, or a lot of people know, that I really enjoy horror movies, horror themed sorts of things. And I'm always on the lookout for something fun and different. So we had a playthrough of it. So what are we doing? We're recording on a weekend. So we played on a Saturday with my friends, and oh boy, I always get worried because horror games can be pretty cheesy, pretty bad, so I was a bit worried. But overall, I think it went well. I definitely will have some feedback for when it comes out. But overall, I think it was good. It's hard to be really thematic with a horror game. Like when I say thematic, like, oh my goodness, I'm so scared, or oh, the suspense, and it's hard in a board game. And I feel this is where like app integration might be useful for certain types of games. I'm not saying this one particularly, but don't worry. We're gonna talk about another one that might bring back some of those scary memories. But yeah, so look out for that. May 16th, I think is when it comes out, and I'll be doing a preview for that soon.
So at the time of this recording, we will start this statement so nobody freaks out.
Yes.
No spoilers. Right, Mandi? No spoilers.
For what?
Well, have you seen Game of Thrones and Endgame? There's like two things circulating out there that are massive spoiler warning generators.
I know, because as we're recording this, let me look at the time now. So Game of Thrones will be starting in 45 minutes at the time that we're recording.
We better hustle, huh?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think that's going to happen. That's okay, because I have, what do you call it? Time shifting or whatever, so I can go back and watch it. But I literally have to avoid the internet because
you have the ability to travel through time? What?
Apparently, Bell Media has time shifting. Who knew they were so cool? So I've been seeing like, this is going to be the episode. It's going to be crazy because, the big scene's happening. And I'm nervous. So I got to stay away from stuff. I'm really excited. So after this, I don't care. I have to stay up late and I got to watch it.
Well, Mandi, can I tell you my take on Game of Thrones?
Oh my goodness. What's this?
Okay. I don't have one because I've only seen one episode.
Really?
Really? I've only ever seen the first episode.
Oh my goodness.
And I haven't read the books.
See, and the books are next on my list because I've heard they're good. But I heard the last book's not even written yet. And this is why it was so difficult to do the last season. Oh my goodness. No, we need to change this. You need to at least watch a few and see if you're hooked.
Okay. No, I have no objection to it. It's just time and all that good stuff. I just didn't climb to the top of my list.
It's a lot, but definitely worth it if you have a chance, but totally get that. And Endgame, everyone's talking about Endgame. Please, no spoilers. I haven't seen it yet. I don't even know when I'm able to see it. So far, it's been pretty good with the no spoilers. What about for you?
I don't mind spoilers. So I have not seen Endgame. I'm looking forward to it after this decade-long journey of films.
Right.
But spoilers don't ruin the experience for me. So if I get spoiled, it's really no big deal for me personally. I still enjoy the journey. So, but yeah, I'm really excited for that. But I'm trying to be respectful of everybody else out there that does care about spoilers, which I seem to be in the minority. And so I will keep my lips zipped once I see it.
All right. So looking forward to it. I can't wait. We'll have to discuss off air after we've seen it.
All right. So, Mandi, the only other thing I wanted to mention real quickly is I got to break some news to you.
Oh, boy. What's this?
I am not going to make it to Dice Tower Con this year in Florida.
What? No!
I know. I'm so sorry, Rumi. I am sure you will have a wonderful different roommate, and I'm going to miss you there. It's just a couple of things happen that make it really difficult for me to get down from Seattle all the way to Florida. Yeah. At the beginning of July, there was some snow up in Seattle that shut schools so long that like they've extended the school year kind of thing and stuff like that. So I'm really disappointed. I don't get to go. I love Dice Tower Con and the people and the gaming. It's just not in the cards for me this July, but I hope you have a wonderful time, Mandi.
Well, I'm a little sad about that because I was going to try and get you to come to Disney because we're now making it a thing. We have like one day where we go to Disney.
I'm so envious.
It's so good. And I even bought so I had it made. I could have made it probably, but I was being lazy. So I had it made, but I had a skirt made because Cinderella was my favorite Disney movie as a child. So I had a skirt made that has, the little birds and from Cinderella. So this is the skirt I was going to wear to Disney, and I was going to get you to come, a group of us to go. And sad.
Well, rain check, because I want to see that. I heard stories from the last one where in your outfit that was just kind of how you dressed most of the time. Little kids thought you were one of the princesses, and I thought that was adorable. I gotta witness that sometime.
They did. It was
rain check for sure.
All right, that sounds good.
Okay, Mandi, I understand that you have an update for me on your Thunderstone Quest campaign.
I do. So I did say that I was going to run through that after we've played a game, just to give you an idea of where we're at. So for those of you just jumping in now, we are on Quest 3. And if you listen to the last podcast, last quest was a bit of a disaster because we didn't properly read the rules again because it had been a while since we played the last quest, and it was rough. And I said, oh my goodness, I don't even know if I want to keep playing this because I'm like, is it us? Is it the game? I have no idea. So we were better prepared this time and read through the rules in detail again, say, okay, it's fresh in our minds, and it went much smoother than last time. So, okay.
That's great.
Yeah, so we're still going, still on a roll. So for those of you who are not familiar with the game, Thunderstone Quest is published by Alderac Entertainment Group, otherwise known as AEG, designed by Mike Elliott, Brian Reese, Mark Wooten. Art is by Jason Engel, Gunship Revolution, Matt Paquette, and David Sue. So this quest, we're playing like a mid-range for right now because there's 3 levels that you can play. So there's like an easy, medium, more difficult, and that just means certain cards are added and can change up the, how the results of the game really. So something we have been playing with are the side quests. It's off the top of my head, I can't remember. There are 2 kind of things that you can play with. One is like an ability. So every time you, for example, kill a level 2 monster, you might get an extra victory point. Or then they have these other side quests that are secret. And once you complete them, you flip it over and you get legendary cards. Well, legendary cards are great. So they go into your deck. Oh, they're so strong. You know what I mean? Some of them can be...
Wait, those are just feel good when you get to play those.
So good. But I mean, there are others. I think there was one person in the game who ended up getting some cards. I think they were vampires, and it wasn't great when you got them immediately because they were worth negative points at the end of the game. But if you were able to power them up, it was great. They were very strong, but you really had to spend a lot of your game powering those cards up so they weren't going to be negative points at the end. Unfortunately for me, I could have gotten a really nice legendary card, but I finished my quest. When did I finish it? Oh, I don't know. The turn before the game was over. So nice. I literally got the card just to get a few victory points because I couldn't even use it. And I just found, and I'm finding this actually as we continue to play, and we all thought this, it's really hard to cull your deck. Like, there are not a lot of cards that allow you to completely destroy cards, versus just discarding, just to kind of taper down the deck. So I do find a lot of the time my decks weren't matching up. So I definitely was focusing on magic and wizards, and I throw a couple clerics in there as well. And nothing was matching up. Like, I'd have a hand that was all magic, but no hero to use the magic. So there were a couple cards I was like, this card is terrible, because it just wasn't lining up. So I definitely think I could have culled my deck better, but I really didn't have a lot of cards to destroy it. So, and I feel a lot of us were kind of falling into that. I wasn't a fan of the card selection for Quest 3. I found there were a lot of cards, like, it really had to align or it just wasn't any good. Or, for example, I think there was something called the Battle Axe that gave us a good laugh, but you needed like a certain amount of, they have these like little flags on cards, and it tells you, it has a number on it, and that's basically how much you can carry. So the Battle Axe had a 6, and if you didn't have your heroes leveled up, most of them start off at a 2. So, you either had to really focus on leveling them up or get lots of the little bread, which would give you more leveling up. So I just thought there were a lot of really good weapons, but then either you couldn't equip it, or I had really good spells, but then it just didn't work because it wasn't coming in contact with the right hero, wizard, and so forth. There was a lot of that for all of us. So I don't know if we were just not doing something right, or maybe we just need to do our decks a bit better, but it wasn't crazy about the market cards this round. The monsters were ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Like, they were so hard. Like, festering wounds were a thing in this game. So I'm like, this is terrible. It's a card that literally is in your deck. It basically gives you, it's going to give you negative points at the end of the game, but it's also giving you wounds when it comes out. So it's like, great. And if you've played the game, wounds are not good, because when you get too many wounds, this is how many cards you get to draw. So the more wounds you get, the, less cards you have to work with. So the monsters were very difficult, even if you don't go too deep into the dungeon. So that was crazy. But I mean, it was good. It was giving a bit more tension, because I do not find the game very strict. I'm very used to playing very punishing games, and this one is not overly punishing. So it's definitely doable. So overall, much better. Definitely, I think, because we definitely reviewed the rules a bit more, and we gave ourselves less time in between, so we didn't forget how to play. Wasn't crazy about the market, and that's when I didn't like the cards that came out. Monsters were hard, but interesting. Festering wounds, that's a thing. Kind of liked it, but not so great. I don't know how to explain that. So, Thunderstone Quest, Quest 3, we'll be moving on to Quest 4, hopefully in a week or so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks for the update. Festering wounds sound awesome,
right?
And awful at the same time. I'm not sure how to react emotionally to this. But those legendary cards, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like Hero Realms so much compared to kind of basic Star Realms, is that the math was all adjusted. So you're just swinging for bigger hits, and it's just a number, and all things considered, you could always reduce the fractions down, so to speak, but it's just more fun when the numbers are bigger. So that sounds pretty cool.
Hero Realms. Oh, that's a fantastic one too.
I love it, yeah. Well, I wanted to give a quick note, because I don't often get to play expansions. I don't prioritize them right now anymore. Cult of the New, trying to play new games, and it's pretty rare that it's pretty rare that I see an expansion and I prioritize it. So I did recently, and I wanted to just mention it, because the Beyond the Gates expansion for Paper Tales, if you like Paper Tales, there is, you should just get the expansion. Just get it, shuffle it in, never remove it. Done deal. I mean, don't shuffle in the solo cards, obviously, but Beyond the Gates, for those of you who aren't familiar with Paper Tales, it's a drafting game, a pretty basic drafting game. The things that differentiate it a little bit are when you play cards, you draft cards, and then you have to buy them. When you buy them, you can place them down in front of you in this little tableau where you have 2 cards in front and 2 cards in back. And then you fight your neighbors, kind of Seven Wonders style, with military points, and you get points if you beat your neighbors, that kind of thing. And then the cards age. So you get these aging tokens. So cards that you put into play will typically only last 2 turns, the turn you play it and the next turn. And then they actually age out, and there are markers that you use to do that. So those are the kind of differentiating things rules-wise that Paper Tales has. There are tons of other things going on. It's definitely a game where the cards matter. There's tons of combos that you can create, that you want to try to gather cards as you're drafting them so you can make smart moves and stuff like that. And I'm very fond of it. I like it. I think the art is lovely, that kind of stuff. Beyond the Gates, first of all, it expands the game to up to 7 players and down to 1, which is totally fine. It's very, very quick. Similar, if you feel like Seven Wonders plays great at 6 or 7 players, then you'll be fine with Paper Tales. It's the same thing where you're only ever really directly focused on your neighbors. So, and it's a drafting game where you're playing pretty much simultaneously. It doesn't slow down the game much at all. What it really just adds is a bunch of new cards and a bunch of new buildings, which is something I didn't mention. But both, just more is good. I mean, that was one of my complaints about Paper Tales, is that you just wanted more cards. That's what Beyond the Gates gives you. It gives you more cards to shuffle into your deck, more characters to play around with, and some big swingers in there, just like we were talking about those legendary cards. So I like that. And then more buildings, which actually adds a little bit of variability because you can kind of mix and match. You now have like a choice of a dozen buildings, but you don't play with that many every game. So, if you like Paper Tales, Beyond the Gates seems like a no-brainer expansion. And if you haven't played Paper Tales, give it a try. It's a nice, light drafting game.
So I have the expansion. They're sitting there. It's on the list of games that I'm like really trying to get to the table. So this now solidifies that I definitely need to try it.
Yeah, if you like Paper Tales, just do it. Just shuffle it in, figure out how you seed the buildings, and go for it, because it works.
Okay, good to know. In the 2-player game, Revolution of 1828, you are trying to become the next president of the United States. To reach this goal, each player tries to take the election tiles that suit you best and hinder your opponent's campaign. If you're a fan of Feld, oh yeah, this girl right here. And well, if you like some talk of elections, don't forget to check out Revolution of 1828 from Renegade Games and look for it at your local game store or online today. Well, I am going to jump right into a game which, well, you'll be like, am I having deja vu? No, you're not, because I'm going to talk about it again because I hadn't played it at the time. So I'm going to talk about the game Metro X, and I am specifically talking about it because someone online had asked about it and said, hey, can you talk about it? So I'll keep it short because I know you've heard it before from Suzanne, because she did it, and I think a while ago, but did talk about it. So
yeah, a little while ago, yeah.
Just a little touch on it. So it's designed by Hiyashi Hayashi. I hope I said that correctly. Artist is Ryo Niamo, and the publisher is Okazu Brand. So I believe it retails for about $25, but it is not available in North America because I have been asked, and I actually purchased mine. I think I purchased it at a convention, but it was brought in. So it's not something that was for sale here, but I had ordered and it came in and I was able to purchase it that way. So it plays 1 to 99 players. Yes, that's what it says on BGG, and it plays in about 20 minutes. So quickly, Metro X, it's basically subway networks, and we have the different maps that we can use. There's 2 different ones, and you're basically trying to fill in the station spaces. So there's these square spaces on the start of kind of a rail network, I guess you could say. And there's a deck of cards that you're going to run through. So they're going to get flipped, and these are the numbers or the actions you're going to use in your railway system. And there are different things on the cards, which really, really tripped me up a few times. But there are things where, like, if a 6 comes up, this means you have to shuffle the deck. That drove me nuts, because trying to use a 6, using a 6 late in the game is so hard. So basically, if a 6 comes up, you need to be able to cross out consecutively 6 little squares. So they say to use circles. I like to use X's, but you need to, in a rail, so you choose which one you want to use. You put a 6 in the station box, because you only have so many you can use in a station box before you don't have any more numbers to use, meaning you may not be able to finish that line. The 6s at the end were horrible because I'd have a lot of 3s or 2s that I could put in, but a 6 means I would have to skip. I needed to skip, which leads me to another card that comes up. And they're usually 2s or 3s, if I'm not mistaken, that'll say skip. And this allows you to, let's say you had 2 spaces, and then you had already put an X from something else, because they sometimes cross over, and then an empty space, you could use a 3 skip there. You would do your 2, skip over that X that's already there, and put the next one. So it helps fill in those empty squares, because in order for you to get points, You need to finish that rail. So the first person to finish it, like true to some other types of roll and write or flip and write games, that person gets the highest point value, and then anybody else thereafter that completes it gets the lower point value. So that was a little confusing. I hope it wasn't too confusing. Get the general gist. But there are different, basically to say that there are different cards that will present different ways of you being able to add your circles or X's on the sheet to complete these rails. So I believe the game is completed when you fill in all your stations. Is that correct, Suzanne? I hope I'm not getting that incorrect.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
All your station spaces, and then that'll say, oh, game is over. I had many a turn where I was not able to take any X's or any circles. And that happened with those 6 shuffles, which is, I had nowhere to put them. 0. So that's probably poor planning on my part. But it was fun. So I have to tell you, this went over really well. My colleagues, we played this at lunch a few times, and they're like, oh, yeah, just, something light. I'm like, oh, I'll bring like a flip and write or roll and write or something like that. And I was like, yeah, it'll be easy, nothing too crazy. They're like, Mandi, we said bring something that we didn't have to think about. My brain is hurting over here.
Yeah.
But can I tell you, at the end, they still really liked it. I really enjoy this game. It comes across as mathy. I don't know why I feel like that. I feel it's more of a spatial thing, but I don't know why it comes off as a mathy type game. It isn't really. Or is it?
It's absolutely mathy. It's the thing with Metro X, which is one of my favorite roll and write games.
So good.
It is definitely, and it's interesting. I find my friends that are quote unquote heavier gamers, this is one of the roll and writes they like as well. Right. And it's a lot of calculation. It's a lot of odds calculation. And I mean, you're complaining about getting those 6s late in the game. I love getting 6s late in the game because I always got something to do with them, Mandi.
We're planning on my part.
So, and it is one of those games that when I teach it to people, I warn them up front, you just got to play your first game and ignore the score. Just get over the experience, learn it, and then you'll understand it much better the second time. You're just not going to make optimal choices your first play. You have to, you do have an advantage if you understand the track system a little bit better. To be fully informed going in as a first-time player, you want to count the squares on each line and understand the balance between how many stations there are versus how many squares there are in the rail so that look, and then you have to think about, well, where do they intersect and how do I take advantage of that? Because, I can't make it to the end with 2, but there's 3 points where they intersect. Right. So I have to plan, like there's it just crunchy. And the 2 maps are very different. Right.
So actually, I was going to tell you. So we didn't. I played mostly. There's Osaka, and I forget what the other one is. There's Tokyo, and I think they recommend you start with which one first. Is it Tokyo? Yeah. So that's the one I've played most of. There's a slight difference on Osaka. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, if you remember off the top of your head.
It just the lines start and end in different places.
It's so weird. You don't notice it at first. Yeah.
And you really, if you're teaching on that one, you really do want to point it out. And then even when you point it out later in the game, somebody's going to go, oh, I forgot about that one.
Yes.
And that's part of the fun.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is I have no excuse that I'm terrible at this game because I know it well.
I mean.
Yeah. I see where that's going. Okay.
Anyway.
So for those of you who had asked about it, I love it. It's so good. And I feel really bad saying that because it's really hard to get. Crossing our fingers that it becomes more readily available. Metro X, Piece de Resistance is wonderful. My colleagues really liked it, even though they were mad at me that I made their brains hurt. Well worth it. Well worth it.
You are correct. Well, let's get our hard to find games out of the way because I wanted to talk about Eco Links, which is published by Korea Board Games. And for those of you who don't know, I was born in South Korea. So there's just this little tiny, oh, yay, Korea, woohoo, pride. I don't know, coming out when I play games out of Korea. I love it. This is actually, what's funny is it's published by Korea Board Games, so it's not designed by a Korean. It's designed by Gunther Burkhardt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay. And the artist is listed as Soap Bear. I don't know who Soap Bear is, but Soap Bear
sounds really adorable.
Soap Bear is an amazing operating name for an artist, and they do great art. So there you go.
Yeah.
EcoLinks is a 4-player game, up to 4-player game. And it's really puzzly. So basically, each player gets a board and they all get the same set of tiles. And the only difference, they're hexagons. The only difference between the tiles on the boards is the art. So one is set in the Arctic and one is set in the jungle and one in the desert. So they're all themed and the art is all themed accordingly to that location. It's all very cartoony and very light and adorable. The art is, I love the art in EcoLinks. So you're going to get this board that's double layered so the hexes fit in nicely. And that stack of hexes. And then there's these other tiles that have numbers on them. And what's going to happen is you get these little wood pieces, stumps, columns, not sure what to call them.
I was like, there's a lot of words there.
Just little circles of wood. And they've got like a little animal face stamped on them. So in the Arctic, you get a little polar bear. And in the garden, you get a little kitty. And I am finding that people pick the boards that they want based on the animal that they want, whatever. It has no impact on gameplay whatsoever, other than your personal enjoyment level of the game. And then what happens is these tiles are flipped up. 6 of them are flipped up. And those will determine the spots that everybody puts these little animal tokens on the edge of the board. So everybody sets up their board the same way. This is very similar conceptually to Karuba. That's one of the closest games I can think of, where it's tile laying, where everybody's going to be kind of doing the same thing or trying to achieve the same goal and has the same setup. So after you lay out the little animals around the board in different locations, then it's a race, which I know it's very divisive, but it is a race. You have the stack of tiles, you all have the same tiles, and then it's a race to fill in the board with tiles so that all of the animal tokens connect in a path. So they can crisscross and things like that, but they all have to be able to get to any other spot where there's an animal. And I don't know if you can hear this, but my dog is snoring in the background and it's distracting me. Sorry.
See, it's appropriate because animals snoring. So, yeah, it works.
Now, so you have to connect all the animals to each other and you cannot have any paths dead end off the edge to a place where there isn't an animal. So you're racing to plug these tiles in and twist them and turn them and make the paths. And then you grab a token in the middle. And then the people who score first and second will get points and everybody else goes wah wah. And an oddly clever twist is that those tiles that determine the start spots are also the score tiles you get, which is interesting. So the first player gets the highest one, and then the second player gets the highest of the silver value ones. Anyway, it's nuanced, but so you're racing to get to the certain number of points, and then you win. It is dead simple. I've played this with my gaming group. I've played this a bunch with my kids, and it is basically a hit. Even people who aren't super fond of racing or real-time things, it's so puzzly. We find that even after somebody's won, players still like to try to solve the puzzle for themselves with the token or with the tiles on the board. It is very easy to teach, very quick to set up, delightful to look at, puzzly for your brain, and I think it's fabulous. It is also very hard to find in North America. I am very sorry. I talk about these games here. I picked this one up in Essen. I talk about them here because I feel like this is a great example of a game I would love to have a life beyond the market that it's produced in. EcoLinks, it just works. You can play it with young players, old players, anything. It's a great filler for more advanced players, things like that. I want people to be checking this out on BGG. Go look at the photos. It's a beautiful game. Go search online. Let Korea Board Games know that you're interested if this sounds good to you or looks good to you, because I think it's a delightful game, and I hope it gets more attention in the future.
Okay, so it's funny. I'm looking up, EcoLinks, I'm looking it up right now. It is super duper cute. I will have to try your copy, so you'll have to sneak it in the luggage there and let me give it a go, because it is adorable.
I've been meaning to talk to you about this, Mandi. I think you should come over to my house and hang out for like a week.
Well, myself and I don't know if anyone knows Isaac Vega from, he's designed Dead of Winter and some other games that we've talked about, or one of the designers. And we've decided to invite ourselves over at some point in the summer so we can just play games all day.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. It's on. All right. Well, it's funny that you will welcome us into your home because I am now going to dive into Welcome to Trick or Treat Edition. Yeah, I know. If you see Suzanne's face right now, she is horrified at that transition.
That segue was a thing.
It was great. It was so good. I had to do it.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, anybody who's new to this podcast has officially turned it off at this point. I'm so sorry. Oh, but goodness. All right. So welcome to Trick or Treat Edition. I know we've spoken about Welcome to on this show, but this is a slightly different edition. And there are others that'll be coming out from the Kickstarter, but I've played this one a few times, so I thought we'd talk about that. So it's designed by Benoit Turpin, and artist is Anne Heidsiek, and the publisher is Blue Cocker Games, but I also believe Deep Water is also doing it as well. And it retails for about $30 Canadian, $25 US, and I'm going to throw it in here for anybody who's not familiar. These are prices that we take from Board Game Bliss and Cool Stuff Inc. So we just get them online pricing, okay? So that just gives you a ballpark figure of how much they cost. So this gameplay is look at that. One more than Metro X. 1 to 100 players.
Oh, snap.
I know.
It's a fight.
For the most players, they've won here. And it takes about 25 minutes to play. So Welcome to, it's another one of those roll and write, but you're not really rolling dice in this one. It's more flipping cards and writing things. So, but in that realm. And I love it because it's very retro looking. Get to name your town. I think I named mine this time Boo Earns Village.
Oh.
But I'm so on a roll today. So in this game, we have 3 sets of piles of cards that we're going to flip. And what's going to happen is you're going to write a number, and then also associated with this number, there's a picture, and it could be of something that's going to give you points on your sheet. So on your player sheet, you have, 3 streets, I guess you would call them. And these are what you can fill up with your numbers. And some things that you can look at doing are creating fences around complete sets of numbers. So you filled in all spots and created a fence. These work in a few ways. So fences, for example, can be working towards some objective cards. I think there's about 3 of them that we place out at the beginning, and you're trying to get a certain amount of fenced off sections based on what the cards are telling you. In the Trick or Treat edition, you actually have the 2 of them are the main cards from the base game, and then you add in one of the Trick or Treat edition cards, one of them being getting the most... getting candy, I think, is one of them. For example, getting a certain amount of candy, or getting, a certain amount of candy on the sheet. Because on the Trick or Treat versions, you have little disgusting candy corn. Yes, I love Halloween, but candy corn is so gross.
Dang, that was an out of nowhere attack on the candy corn.
That's made of what? Corn syrup entirely? Who knows? They're disgusting. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I'm diverging into a whole other topic
you
here.
Say you're sorry, but I'm just not seeing actual sorrow.
I'm sorry. So sorry.
Liar.
Okay. Lies and deceit, right? So that's another edition of Welcome to. So there's little candy corns, and then you have little ghosts. And the ghosts will also come into play, and we'll talk about that later. But basically, you have a new cards that will be based on ghosts or candy corn that you acquire on the sheet. So that's something else you can look forward to. They also have pools you can score. So by writing certain numbers, now keeping in mind the number you're choosing, there's a picture above it. It has to be from that corresponding, column, so to speak. So if I had a 6 and there was a pool, I can write a 6 pool. And that's great because at the bottom of my sheet, I'm going to mark in that little box, ooh, I got a pool. Crossing out one of the numbers, because there's a listing of numbers that are for pools. And as you cross them out, it gets higher in numbers. So you get more points at the end of the game. They have... is it traffic cones or traffic? I don't know what they're called. They look like little orange symbols. They look like hazard. I can't explain it. They remind me of traffic cones, but they're not. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I don't.
The technical term?
Are they not?
Okay, we'll go with that.
Traffic.
We're going to say traffic cones or some kind of traffic symbol, but this is an example. If you get this number, it actually can sway the number 0, 1, or 2. So you might get the number that you actually want to write down within that frame, but then you also get to mark down on the bottom of your sheet. This is where you cross one off. Ooh, I got one. And the player who has the most at the end of the game is going to get more points. Anyway, I'm not going to go through them all, but there are several ones like this that are going to get you points. In addition to trying to completing a row doesn't get it for you, but there's a symbol that allows you to mark off some numbers at the top, which will make that row worth more at the end of the game. With the Trick or Treat edition, you now have trying to cross off candy or ghosts, and the first player, let's say, who crosses off 5 ghosts will get the 5 bonus, and that bonus is now no longer available for any other player. Or you could say, well, I've gotten 5 ghosts, but I'm going to keep going to get 7 so I can get the next level. Or 9, I think it is the highest, and then you can get that level. But once someone takes it, then it's no longer available for anyone else. And they have the same thing for candy, but the candy cord is worth points versus the ghosts, you're getting a bonus of getting extra pools or something to that effect. So it's the same. The game itself is basically the same, but you're working on different sheets because you have the candies and the ghosts, and those will either give you points or more bonuses that are going to help you at the end of the game. And then you also have a new objective card that you're throwing in there. So the game ends, I believe the game ends when it's, is it full? No, it's either when players mark off 3 of the basically unable to take any of the actions.
Or full.
Those are the 2 end game conditions.
Or if 3 of the goals are met.
Or 3 of the goals are met. Exactly. I don't think that's ever happened in a game I've played, so that's probably why I forget about it.
Oh, interesting.
Really?
That just goes to show the metas are different in every game group. Because, that happens to us all the time.
Really? Yeah, it's never, ever happened. So, okay, that's interesting. So that's why I forget about it, but you're right. That is one of the end game conditions. So, welcome to the Trick or Treat edition. I had high expectations here because it's Halloween. I love Halloween. I liked it. I just don't know, for me, if the ghosts were a draw for me in this game. The candy was great because I'm like, oh, that's more points. Do you know what I mean? I felt myself focusing on that, but I definitely.
So, Mandi, I'm sorry. Did you just say that? Say that again. The what was great?
Those delicious candy corns were great.
I knew it. You hypocrite.
I think those are probably the step below goodies, but that's a whole other conversation. So we'll talk about that. So the candies for me, points. I'm all about the points. The ghosts, and this is just me, one of the objective cards, and it actually is kind of interesting. It kind of screws you a little bit here. One of the objective cards is something about, if I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head, something to do with getting like a certain amount of ghosts. A certain amount of ghosts in order to meet the objective. Here's the thing, but it has to be on a specific road. I think it's the 3rd row. If you end up going for candy, you've screwed yourself. Because if you cut off all the candy, like you're marking them off, well, you're not going to get that ghost. It's wrap. You've just chosen candy now. And that's not the objective card. That's something I totally messed up for myself. That's not why. But just for me, I don't know if it was enough for me to be like, okay, I'm going to play this one all the time. I just didn't feel that draw with the ghost. Like the bonuses weren't for me like, ooh, it's so amazing. I need it. It was like, yeah, it's all right. I liked the extra points. I like changing it up with the objective. The sheets were cool. The sheets are a little bit dark, so I had some of my friends say they found it a little harder to read. So these ones now, that's if you don't laminate. So I do laminate them usually. These ones I hadn't had a chance to do yet. They are laminated now. But I think my friends didn't really, they thought it wasn't enough contrast when you're using the markers and stuff. It was harder to see.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. I was okay with it, but they did find it difficult. But I mean, it's a slight variation to the original game. So I'm not saying it's terrible in any way. I just think it might take a couple of tries to play before you decide, okay, well, maybe I do like this part of it. You know, I happen to like the candy because it gives me extra points. Does it make me a better player? Not necessarily. That's all about the strategy, of course. I do like the theming of it, and I think that's where it really comes down. But I don't find the rule changes. That's the word I'm looking for. They're not blowing your socks off. You know what I mean? But I enjoyed myself. I know the people I played with were not crazy about the first play with it. And I don't know if they were just trying to get the connection to the game. They just said, oh, I don't find myself really wanting to use these things. Like you have to consciously think about it. I disagree. I actually was like, ooh, Halloween stuff. Let me go for it. I just don't know how beneficial it was for me at the end of the game. That's not a reason to hate it in any way. It was just more of a thought process. So welcome to Trick or Treat Edition. I like the theming of it. I like the look of it, albeit the board's it is a bit dark, harder to see. Listen, it's a variation of the same game. So I think for the most part, after a couple plays, you'll probably get more into it. So it's an overall, I did enjoy it.
Cool. That's awesome. Have you tried any of the other variants that they have?
It's on its way, because this one was on the Kickstarter, so I only had the Trick or Treat edition. I got the mat. The mat's pretty cool. I was like, I'm not a mat person, but I like the layout. It makes, especially when I'm teaching, it makes things a lot easier for people to see. I really liked the mat a lot. But I'm waiting, so hopefully we can have a little discussion about the new bits that are coming.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Yeah, I have mine. I just haven't played all the new maps yet, so I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
Well, apropos of our upcoming discussion, I wanted to talk about Tinnitus. Tinnitus is a 2-player game designed by Dieter Stein, published by Clemens Gerhards. And Clemens Gerhards games fall into a category similar to the GIPF games, the GIPF series of abstract games, where kind of like if you say GIPF games, the people who know GIPF all go, oh, yeah. And it's kind of, if you say Clemens Gerhard, it's a Clemens Gerhard game. Everybody who knows Clemens Gerhard's games goes, oh, yeah. So Tinnitus is a Clemens Gerhard's published game.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There you go. Wait, nice pickup. Well done. That wasn't rehearsed, folks.
No, it really wasn't.
I picked my copy up for $40 on a website because it doesn't go through traditional game publishing outlets and distribution. You kind of have to seek these out if you want them. I will say, Tinnitus is a abstract game. It has a wooden board with little divots cut out of it. And if you look at it, it kind of looks like maybe a pockmarked hexagonal board with just like lots of little things. It's kind of hexagons, or if multiple hexagons were grouped together kind of thing. And then you get a bag full of nice chunky wooden discs that are painted in 7 different colors, and you get one very simple wooden player pawn. Now, that board, at least in my edition, is a solid carved chunk of wood. And it's really fascinating. It's the way they carve the underside, the base is narrower and then it flares up into the game top. So the board, top to bottom, is a couple of inches thick, but then they've tapered it essentially. It's very stable. It's very beautifully crafted. This game for $40 for the quality, wow. It's impressive. It's very well made. So Tinnitus is a 2-player game. As I mentioned, you get these little discs in 7 different colors. There are 7 of them, so 49. And you kind of shake them up in a bag, and then you just dump them out on the board and kind of spread them out so they fill in all the divots. And so you've filled in all those little pits with these colorful discs, and it's all totally random on how they're laid out. First player takes the pawn, places it where they want to start, takes that token, and then the next player technically moves the pawn and then takes the token of the color that they moved it to. The game is won when somebody gets all 7 of one color, which I have found to be very rare. Or at the end of the game, you get the winner is the person with the majorities in colors. So whoever has the most majorities in those 7 colors will be the winner. So you're just moving the pawn and taking the token that you move it to. The tricks in this game are you can take, if the colors are connected, if you can move from the same color to the same color, you can take them all. So if a little group of orange, if there are 3 oranges together, you can go bloop, bloop, bloop and take all 3 orange in one turn. Mm-hmm. What's also interesting is that empty spaces do not count against that adjacency or continuation. So there are turns where you're going to actually be jumping across the board practically because there's an orange over there, but there's also 2 oranges over here. So you kind of cross the thing. You can only move these pawns in straight lines though. So that's one thing. Like you can only move it in which is Very clever. So you're moving your pawn to take a color, but you'll find that often the color that you take, you are also looking ahead to what your opponent will be able to move to after you take that. And that will drive your decision as much as anything else. It is a dead simple rules-wise game, and it is absolutely delightful to play. It is wonderful. That randomized board setup sets up a different challenge or a different puzzle every time. And it's one of those games that you're really, it's a little thinkier than you think it's going to be, but it's not stressful per se.
Right.
I've just definitely fallen in love with Tinnitus. It is a wonderful 2-player abstract game. It is definitely simple enough that you can play with your kids. If you have a 2-player game night or just a partner that you're playing with or something like that, you should check this out. It is a beautifully crafted game. Mechanically, it plays beautifully. It is a real winner and definitely one of my favorite Clemens Gerhard's games. So that is Tinnitus.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of this. Is it easy to get?
I had to order mine online from. I ordered mine from a website called The Wooden Wagon.
Okay.
Now, when we go to Essen, you can get them at Essen.
Yeah,
There's like a whole
anything wooden,
booth.
though, is heavy. Like, I remember that because that's where we got the one I showed you. Wow, it's going out of my head right now. Well, they had all the wooden games, and I remember. This is gorgeous, but it would weigh like 30 pounds.
Yep. So I ordered it from a website here that imports them for $40, and that's how I got my copy because they're across the board pretty great abstract games and beautifully crafted. So it's not something that you can usually go into your friendly local game store necessarily and pick up. You might be able to, depending on what they order, but it wasn't hard for me to order in the US. I just had to order it from a very specific website.
Got it. Totally get that.
Yeah.
All right. So now this is normally where we'd end games played, but I can't leave it here, Suzanne. I have been noticing on Twitter, you've been talking about a game that has a lot of cards, and it's all...
I talk about a lot of games on Twitter.
This one's like more than meets the eye. So I feel like you need to talk about it because I've just seen it everywhere. Everyone's really hyped on it. Give it to us. What game have you been talking about a lot on Twitter?
Okay, so thank you for not making me bottle it up, Mandi. I appreciate that. I am a child of the 80s. That was all my beloved childhood pop culture things. Star Wars, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Snork, Smurfs. Not The Littlest Hobo. That's y'all Canadian thing.
It's so good.
And the Transformers. Now, I had a next door neighbor, and his dad would travel to Japan and bring back the hardcore real Transformers, and I wasn't allowed to play with them. My friend wasn't allowed to play with them. Only his dad could play with them. But he had them on the shelves, and they were so cool. So my love of Transformers started as a childhood, and I love the cartoon. I mean, we had the toys, but really, I love that 80s cartoon. And so here comes the Transformers TCG from Wizards of the Coast. And, I had to try it. First of all, I have a couple of friends in my game group, Josh and Melissa, and they tend to click with some of these TCG things like Star Wars Destiny and the LCGs and stuff like that. And that makes it really easy for me to get into them because I have an excuse. Oh, well, my friends are doing it too, right?
Of course.
So here comes Transformers TCG. All the art is definitely more modern. It's not the cartoon art. It's definitely more reminiscent of the modern movies, and that aesthetic's very robotic, very metallic and computer generated in a way. The art's great, and what happens is that you form a team of bots. Now, you can be the Decepticons, or you can be the Autobots, or you can mix them. But I don't want to know the monster that does that, okay?
Wrong.
Pick a side. Pick a side. Come on now. And you form a team of bots based on the stars that they have on them, and you can have your team can have up to 25 stars. So you can have a bunch of little lighters starred bots, or you can have like one mega 20-star bot and then like a support 5-star bot. It's totally up to you on how you build up that bot team. And then you have a deck of at least 40 cards, playable cards. And these bot cards are like extra big. And then you have regular CCG style size cards that you get to play as well. And you're basically battling back and forth. So you're going to just draw a card and then you can flip a character because these cards are double-sided. One side is your bot side, and then the other side is the quote-unquote alt mode, which will be the truck or the plane or whatever that Transformer turns into.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you get to do that every turn. You can flipping a character is just one of the actions you naturally do through gameplay. And it's optional, but it's easy to do. And that's really great. And there are also cards that let you flip. And then you can play action cards like boosting attacks or things like that. And then you can add upgrades to your characters too. So you can add plasma cannons or defense shields or all sorts of stuff. And then you just whack at each other with these things. And you go to battle. Now, the battle's interesting because I've played a fair number of CCG and TCGs in my life and battling card games in my life. And because this is Wizards Coast, you tap and untap. The battle rhythm is a little different here. And it's definitely taken me some time to get used to it. And I always need a little bit of a refresher when I play the first time of like, oh, that's right. Because basically you tap to attack. You turn your card sideways to attack. And you must attack your opponent's tapped characters first, which is fine. And then depending on how many characters you have tapped or untapped and things like that, you have this kind of battle back and forth until everybody's tapped out, and then you all get to untap your characters. It's a slightly different rhythm. It's totally fine, but it just takes a little getting used to if you're used to things like Magic or Hearthstone or things like that. And then to battle, the other thing that's a little different about it is that along with the standard things you're going to find on cards like plasma +2 to attack or whatever, they have these little icons in the upper right. They're just rectangles. There's orange, blue, white, and now green. And basically, when you attack somebody, then both players flip the top 2 cards off the top of their deck. And it's not push your luck. I'm not quite sure what you would call this, but basically, if you're attacking, you want to flip up orange icons because those will boost your attack power. If you're defending, you want to flip up blue icons because those will boost your blue. And if you flip up white icons, it actually will let you flip over 2 more cards. Just a one-time ability. I'm not sure the logic behind that, but that's just the mechanism of the thing. After all those cards are flipped, you add up your attacker's value and you compare it against your defender's value, and then you do damage. And the difference when a character accumulates throughout the turns enough damage to knock them out, they're KO'd and moved into the KO pile, and basically battle back and forth until you KO everybody's opponents. It's very quick. It's very, very light. In fact, there's a variant that I want to teach to my 7-year-old where you don't even worry about the card actions. You're just battling back and forth and flipping cards to do that, to do that kind of icon adding up. It's a little deeper, and I actually like those icons because that actually adds another element to your deck building thing. So not only are you thinking about your balance of equipment versus actions, you're also thinking about, well, this card has a double orange icon, but the ability is not that great. So what do I need more in this deck? It's a very simple game, but there's a little more depth here than it at first blush. Then the expansion came out recently called the Combiners, and I'm going to talk about this forever, so you're going to have to stop me, Mandi. The Combiners just came out, and now you get this team of bots, and when you flip them, when you manage to flip them all over to their alt mode, then you can combine them, and like you open them up, and then like literally the cards, the art is spread around the cards, and you line them up so you get this mammoth cardboard thing in front of you with this huge combiner, like the Constructicons or the Dinobots or whatever. It's just like Omega Supreme. Anyway, Omega Supreme is a different card, but I'm just getting really, really excited. So, the combiners are ridiculous. They're easy to play. There's a green icon that adds another ability to take a card back in your hand, which is actually necessary for the combiners. just swinging at each other once you've both managed to get into combiner mode and you're just whacking at each other with these big things. It's amazing. It's ridiculous. It's silly fun with just enough challenge and depth to keep it interesting. I'm not going to say that it's only got the base set and one expansion right now. That only any CCG only offers so much depth within the first couple of releases. So you take that for the grain of salt. But I am having a lot of fun with it. You open those packs and you just giggle like a school kid again. It feels Transformery. It definitely has. It feels like it to me. Flipping those cards, the combiners. So thank you, Mandi. I'm having a lot of fun with it. That's the Transformers TCG. I will say TCG does mean it's collectible. Right. I have put a little bit of money into it that I don't have and shouldn't be spending on it. But
that was my next question too.
And that's
I was
the danger.
like, this is why I can't, because I'm the type of person who likes to have it complete. So I'm the perfect client. Like I would just keep buying this stuff. So this is why I try not to jump in on this, but it sounds pretty good.
So depending on the type of person you are, I just say that because I know how some of us are, because I'm one of them. They do have some very nice starter sets and things like that. And like the Constructicon set is pre-packaged, so you don't have to chase any of the Constructicons. You just and it's the deck is pre-made. It's super fun to play. So and they're not very expensive. Like the starter set, the Autobot starter set is not very expensive. There's a new starter set coming out soon. So if you just wanted something fun to play with your family or something, you can go that route. And as long as you're not a, itching to buy more collectible cards kind of person, you can still have fun with a light Transformers themed game that way.
All right. Well, looking forward. I might just borrow someone's deck because honestly, I just don't think I would be able to stop.
You can borrow somebody else's deck. I'm not letting you touch my cards.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Let's discuss those previously discovered board game gems in Shelf Staple.
Turn down the lights. So, you want to play the game? My game, my rules. I am the gatekeeper. Roll the dice. Answer me, you maggots.
If anybody does not know what that's about, I have to say, this brings back so many good memories. So if you don't know by now, the game that I'm talking about is Nightmare. Woo! And this was published in 1991. It is an old one. So here's where this gets a bit weird. I know we're talking about Shelf Staple. This is kind of hard to say it's a Shelf Staple because when it originally came out, yes, I have the original copy still. It was VHS. So it's one of those ones, I still have it. I still have my VCR, but I mean, it doesn't work very well. And I know there's a lot of other people who still have the game, but they don't have a VCR to play it all. And I can't even tell you to get it because, well, if you want this particular version, it's VHS. They did come out with later, I think in 2003 or something like that. They came out with, what's it called? Atmosphere. And then some other expansions. Atmosphere is also what it's called, I think, in Europe and other places as well. So you'll see those as well. But the 1991 version is so cheesy and so good. I can't even. So for those of you who are not familiar with the game, Nightmare, it's literally a board game that's controlled by a videotape. So you know how we have games like Mansions of Madness, with that app integration. This is like one of the OG games where you were using media with the game. And basically you're racing against time and racing against the host, which is the gatekeeper, okay, before he gets you. And it really is pretty terrible looking back on it now, but at the time it was just so campy and fun. And the aim of the game is to collect 6 of your character's keys and then race back to the center of the board, which is called the Nightmare Square. So you have an hour, because I think it's 60 minutes if I'm not mistaken. And if you don't, if you don't get it before that hour is up, the gatekeeper wins the game. And you'll notice as the game progresses, the gatekeeper gets older and more creepy and disturbed looking. So you don't want the gatekeeper to get you at the end. So I love this game so much. It's maybe a memory thing, but like, turn down the lights and, he's yelling at you, hurry up, lose a turn, and calling you all kinds of names. And I'm a big horror fan, like horror movies. Like, I love the theming. And some of it can be a little cheesy, but sometimes it works. You see movies like The Blob, and it's like, okay, The Blob, really? But that's like a classic movie, Christine, a talking car, Stephen King, like, it works. And this is one of those games where I guarantee you people listening to this are like, oh, I've got mine up in the closet. It's the purple tattered edges. They still have it. I am campaigning right now, Restoration, to bring back Nightmare. Apparently, this is in the works by another company. I don't know. I haven't heard anything else about it, but I'm putting it out there. Someone needs to bring back this game, tweak it up a little bit so it's not super cheesy looking, but so much fun. And I do find horror themed games, it's hard to make them really thematic and you to be in the game and enjoying it and feeling that thrill, even if it is a little goofy or campy, I guess would be a better word to use. But in this particular game, it works really well, and I just feel like having I find horror games need almost like a game master, or in this case, a gatekeeper. Like, you need someone to kind of run the game, to have that story to get you involved. Love it. So Nightmare is kind of a shelf staple, but kind of not, because if you don't have a VHS type, you can't really play it. But it's just one of those games. If you haven't experienced it, I definitely think you should. And this is kind of like my vie to make it happen and make them bring it back. So Nightmare, and I didn't even say who was designed by, my apologies, designed by Philip Tanner. There's a listing of publishers. So I'm not 100% sure who it's with right now. 2 to 6 players, 60 minutes, obviously with the material ages 12 and up, horror themed Nightmare. Check it out.
Well, I happen to know that the owner of Restoration Games tends to listen to this podcast, so who knows? Well, I wanted to go not quite so far back to the year 2008. And this one popped to mind as I was thinking about what I wanted to do for a shelf staple, because I realized that there are expansions for this game out that I want to get. Oh. And considering that I just talked about Paper Tales earlier, and I don't play a lot of expansions, I think it says something about a game that I want the expansions for this game. But the base game is good on its own and worthwhile talking about. So this is Jet Set. From Watzel Poe Games. It's designed by Chris Gould, and the art is from Mike Robb, who, if you don't know, has done some very well-known Magic cards over the years. A great, talented artist. Jet Set is a game that when you look at the board, it's going to look like Ticket to Ride on a number of levels. So you've got a map of Europe, and it's got little dots at cities, and then it's got colored pathways connecting them. And then you also have route cards of a sort that show that as well. So you kind of look at it like, oh, it's Ticket to Ride with planes. And no, I'm gonna do what I can to kind of pull you away from that association, because really Jet Set is an economics game with a plane theme. So I always, whenever I talk about Jet Set, I always like to call that out. But it's an interesting thing, because if I were to tell you what you're trying to do, it sounds like Ticket to Ride a little bit too. So basically in Jet Set, you're going to claim routes, you're going to place your planes, and then you're going to try to complete flight cards.
Okay.
It still doesn't necessarily sound like an economic game, but these routes and planes all cost money, typically $5, €5, because it's set in Europe. And money is incredibly tight. This is without a doubt an economic game, and it is a little bit painful because getting money is one of the biggest challenges. Maintaining that economy and budget is a huge challenge in this game. So you're going to be buying routes, and then you can place planes, and you got to pay for all of that. You can add planes later, but it's still going to cost you. And the more routes you actually have a surcharge or that you have to pay on top of that. So things get more expensive as you go. Wow. You can also put planes on routes other people own, because you never want to be blocked out. Right. But then not only do you have to pay for the plane, that $5, you also have to pay the route owner $5 as well. So it gets very expensive, and you just see that money disappear, and you're going, you're pulling at your collar, getting a little sweaty there. The reason why you're getting all these planes out is that you're trying to complete flight cards. So flight cards will have 2 destinations, kind of like the destination tickets on Ticket to Ride, where you're trying to connect two cities. Great. You do that. And to complete these cards, they're kind of actually laid out. They're available. To do that, you actually have to remove planes from the connecting legs or routes. And then you get the points. And more importantly, you get the income because completing flight cards, they also generate money for you because like that's just a route that your airline flies now. So you get 3 chips on a route card or flight card when you complete it. And each turn you can take an income action and remove a chip from each of your flight cards that you've completed and get money for those. And then even when the chips are all gone, the empty cards will still produce a couple of euro each time you take that income action. So they are your income generators. So in the beginning of the game, you're going to want to complete a lot of these short flights just to start getting money. Because again, money is very tight in this game. And that's what you're doing. You're going around, you're completing some routes are longer, some routes are shorter. The cards are also worth points. So the shorter routes aren't worth very many points, but the longer routes are, that kind of thing. But you have to build up to the longer routes.
Right.
At the beginning of the game, you're also dealt 2 final flight cards. So these are the big long routes. It has 3 locations and you have to do them kind of in order. You can't create a loop that starts with the middle city. They have to connect in the right order. And you get more points for every leg for the longer the trip it takes to get there. So you have to hit all 3 cities in the right order, but you can hit a bunch of cities in between. And the more you do that, the more points you get. But again, to do that, you have to have those planes out there and you have to have not used them for other shorter routes, that kind of thing. And the game is timed with these vacation cards it's one of those games where you have to seed the deck with a certain number of cards at the bottom, that kind of thing. And then you don't quite know how many turns you have because when those vacation cards turn up, that's toggles the end game, that kind of thing. Jet Set has a very specific aesthetic that's often criticized. I will say it's a very simple graphic design. It does help making it very easy to see. You can focus on what the components are. You can see where your planes are. You can see where the cities are, that kind of thing.
Right.
And honestly, Jet Set has withstood the test of time. You are making hard choices. You are planning ahead. You are getting cut off on optimal routes. And then you have to decide, do I want to try to go around or do I just pay up and take the route that I wanted? I can complete this short route, but that's the last plane I have there and I need it for my final flight. Do I sacrifice now and just plan on playing one later when there's going to be more expensive because I have the surcharges for my other routes? Rules-wise, it's actually not that complicated of a game, but depth-wise, it's definitely a nice, thinkier game. By no means is this a heavyweight 3-hour game.
Sure.
But it's definitely going to work your brain a little. It's definitely a clever economic game. It's still in my collection. It's withstood the last decade of time. And now apparently there's these new expansions that came out. They kickstarted a couple years ago.
I was about to ask you about that, actually. Yeah, I was going to say.
But I really want to.
I remember hearing about these.
They add big jumbo jets that you don't remove, but they cost more, and chartered flights and more goals and more ways to get money, which might be a nice thing. It's definitely one of those games I want to explore more and see what else they've done with. So I've got to pick those up. But Jet Set on its own, solid, entertaining, economic game that uses routing and things like that. So check it out if you haven't had the chance to.
We ask, you respond, we discuss. Let's talk hot topics in Victory Points.
Well, I don't know if Victory Points was inspired by the fact that I was thinking I wanted to talk about Tinnitus or whether everything just came together serendipitously, but thank you everybody who responded to the Victory Points poll and thread on the Dice Towers Board Game Geek Guild. We always appreciate your input. Don't forget to check those out. You can definitely go back and read this thread and see the poll results for yourself as well. We pulled out some of the comments, but couldn't include them all. So we kind of tried to capture ones that seemed to cover the spread, so to speak. But the question in the poll was, how do you feel about abstract games? Do you love them? You buy and play them frequently. You like them and you make an effort to play them? They're okay, but you rarely play them, or they're just not for you. And I have to say, Mandi, I thought the poll results were interesting to me. And I'll have to admit, a little surprising. So only 13% of you said that you love them and you buy and play them frequently. 31% of you said that you like them and you make an effort to play them. A whopping 51% of you said that they're okay and you rarely play them. And then 5% of you said that they're just not for you, which I think is, I don't know what I was expecting. I thought more people would be more into them.
So did I, actually. 100% I thought that.
But, so Mandi, what do you think of abstract games?
I mean, so abstract games, the first thing that people think of is themeless. I hear that so much about abstract games. And I guess for me, because I play a lot of Euro games and, worker placement, those types of games. And well, let's be honest, a lot of them don't really have a tie-in theme. So that for me is not the first thing that comes to my mind. I just like the idea of the game. Do you know what I mean? So I actually really like abstract games. I mean, it doesn't help the ones I like are fairly pretty, but I like the way it makes my mind kind of think about things. It kind of takes me out of a way that I would normally think of it and go, oh, I kind of have to switch my train of thinking. And I like that. It's almost like an exercise for the brain. And I mean, it does help if it's really pretty, nice to look at, which actually can be distracting for me. But I think I just like that it changes my way of thinking, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It puts me on a different trajectory because I am the type of person that's a bit more reactive. And I do find with abstract games, I can't always play like that. I actually do have to do a combination of strategy and tactical play. I'm horrible, by the way, at abstract games, like absolutely just terrible. But I still really enjoy it. And it's like a puzzle. It makes me think, oh, okay, what am I going to do next time? And I like that. Yeah. And it's not overwhelmingly lengthy, so I'm not getting tired. Don't get me wrong, my brain's working, I'm taking time to think about things, but I'm not overly exhausted. I'm like, whoo, put my hand on the wall and just drained me here. No. It made me think really hard, worked the brain, did some like little brain exercises, want to try it again. I like that. So that's just my overall kind of thinking with abstract games.
Oh, interesting. I think I was thinking about this, and I guess I was surprised at the poll results because I like abstract games and I buy them and make an effort to play them. I will say a lot of abstract games tend to be 2-player games, which for me with my group right now is a little tougher to get to the table, but it's not for lack of a desire on my part, for sure. And I really love them. In fact, when people ask me, well, how did I get into gaming? I speak to 3 board games. Magic, The Gathering, but Quarto was one of the games that really pulled me into hobby gaming. This is a classic 2-player Connect 4 in a kind of way where you pick the piece that your opponent places on the board. And I still love that darn game. And it is definitely one of the games that pulled me into the hobby deeper. So I am a huge fan of abstract games. So all of those beautiful Quarto and Corridor and things like that from Gigamic Games, the GIF series that I mentioned earlier with the Clemens Gerhard's games. These are all fabulous, fabulous games. In fact, Tinnitus is definitely one of my new favorites. Now, I guess, Mandi, I'd love to hear some of your favorite abstract games, but then I was thinking about this. I would say War Chest is one of my newer abstract games that I really enjoy. But but is it an abstract game? Is the Duke an abstract game? You had talked about themeless. I know some of the comments in the guild, and I'm not sure we copied them into the comments for this discussion, but I know some of the other comments were talking about the other criteria for an abstract game. And it went beyond themeless. It went to areas of like perfect information and things like that. And beyond themeless, non-representative was something too. So for example, in Tinnitus, you're not representing lemmings or mushrooms or anything like that. They're just colored discs. But in chess, you literally have pieces that represent a queen and a king and a knight and things like that. So does that take it out of the category of abstract? I don't know.
I also like, are there things that can we say things like no randomizers, no dice, no simultaneous movement, things like that? Could those qualify under abstract? Hidden information?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to,
these are just things I'm kind of thinking about. And I'm thinking of games that I, kind of quantify and say, hey, these are, qualify and say these are, in my opinion, abstract games, and none of those things are present in them. You know what I mean?
Well, and then to that point, are trick-taking games abstract games? And where does that line fall between... when we define abstract games, do we need to clarify that abstract games strictly applies to board games and card games are excluded unless cards are being used as board-like pieces? Right. Because you could play a game like The Duke with cards, with square cards. You could play a game, Onitama.
Right.
Right? That's a card game. It drives pieces.
It's funny because Onitama is, and I like abstract games, Onitama's not one of my favorites. It's not a bad, I know I'm going to hear about that. It's not a bad game. Okay. It just didn't go over well for me. I tried it with my mom. I tried it with a couple of people, and it was always, I don't know, it didn't quite grab me. And I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it was having the cards. Who knows? But chess, I'm not good at it, but I actually like chess.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? So I like that kind of part of it. So something threw me off. But I know you had asked me earlier some games that I feel that are abstract that I play. And anyone who's watched my top 100 will have seen this appear on my list. Dominoes. And there has been some back and forth. Some people don't think it is an abstract. There are a lot of people that do think it is. Dominoes for me is one that's part of my childhood. I grew up playing dominoes. I grew up playing checkers, chess, all of those sorts of things. Linja is another one.
That's what you introduced me to.
I love it. And it's so simple. Just looking at it, it's a few wooden, pieces, some sticks. And it's a 2-player and it just really gets the brain going. Anybody I show it to is like, oh, this is so good. I love what it does. And Azul, which is probably one that most people kind of have heard about already. I like that a lot, but I also like the kind of Portuguese connection there for me. Anybody who has a Portuguese household knows about that blue dishware, and you see a lot of that in Azul, so very familiar, but I like the concept. I'm playing that with 2 is extremely cutthroat, by the way. And Quirkle. Quirkle is one I like to play on an app. Yeah. I don't necessarily like to play the actual board game of it. I like to play because it's easy for me to play on the go. And I think that's actually a teacher thing. It looks like something I would do as an activity with children for coordination, for patterns, do you know what I mean? Like an exercise. And I feel like it would work really well. So those are just a few that I enjoy. What about you, Suzanne? I know you had mentioned a couple.
Well, yeah, without a doubt, Corridor and Quarto are up there. So those Gigamic published ones. I like Yinch a lot from the GIF series. I haven't tried all the GIF series, but Yinch is a great one. And Onitama. Love Onitama. Love Azul. Games like that definitely hit a sweet spot. Venice Connection is a little 2-player tile game that I quite enjoy. And again, it's like, well, is Venice Connection really an abstract game? I guess you could, I just don't know. There's a game from the Pac-O games, those little gum size called Hue, Hue, which... Again, does that count as an abstract game? Because you're laying these cards over each other, but then the card that you hold back is what you score. So you have a hand of cards. So it is hidden. It's not perfect information. Does that remove it?
Right.
I don't know what else I would call Hue then. If it's not an abstract game. I'm open to other definitions. I hadn't.
Yeah.
It's literally just popping to mind. Quirkle is a great game.
Love it.
I believe it's a Spiel winner, and my kids love it. I love it with them. They play it on the app. We play it in real life. Another one is Blockus or Blocus.
Yeah, that's a popular one, actually. Very popular.
Which is great because it can play more than 2 players. And if War Chest falls under the category of abstract, then that can also play 2-player teams. So you can play up to 4. Yeah.
War Chest was a surprising one for me. Honestly, I remember you said you weren't sure if I was going to like it. I loved it. And the person I played it with, we were both like, this is great.
yeah, War Chest just clicks for me on that front. But we are very similar, Mandy, in the sense that we both are very big fans of Euro-style games, and these are games that are often accused of having pasted on theme. And I even mentioned that when I posted the poll of, we're not talking about, when we say themeless, we're not talking about pasted on themes, like, oh, that game could have any theme.
There's nothing.
Because that's almost every game. And arguably, or inarguably, every board game is an abstraction of some sort.
Sure.
Right? An abstraction. So I think drawing that line, it may be a little fuzzier than I first thought.
Right.
And some people are kind of like, well, you know it when you see it kind of thing, which I never love, but part of me is like, okay, I guess. I don't know. But for me, I love abstract games. I think there's a purity to them. It's just clean. It's just a setup, some rules. I think the best abstract games are slimmer on rules, simpler on moves, and really just leave it to you and one opponent typically to battle it out. And there is something very appealing about that to me. But again, as a gamer that loves Euro-style games where the theme doesn't matter, where my group, we joke about theme, blah, blah, blah kind of stuff. Maybe that's just how my brain works because, as we'll see here in just a second, a lot of people, and I was surprised, they weren't bashing abstract or anything, but they were pretty strong on the fact that theme really mattered, even if it was pasted on. Like Santorini has a theme, and that seemed to be enough to propel them forward on that one. So there you go.
Okay. Well, maybe we should see what people have to say.
Sure.
All right. Well, let's start with Tim Pert949. Sorry, I had to say it like that. I'm so sorry. That's totally not how it's meant to be said. So Tim says, while I enjoy playing them for some reason, they do not really pop out when I look at my game shelf. I really enjoy the gift series of games and Quirkle, but I think it is the lack of theme that keeps me away. So there it is.
And Baker O was right there with him. I love the idea of abstract games and usually enjoy them when I do end up playing, but in practice, they very rarely end up hitting the table.
And I'm wondering if it's the player count, though.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Moving on to Dan L. I find theme really draws me in, so it is hard for me to connect with themeless games. I will play them, but even lightly themed abstracts like Hive or even Santorini just don't do it for me. Remove the theme, and I am almost certainly not interested. But I'll keep trying and playing them. Maybe eventually I will find one I like.
Way to keep at it, Dan. Great
I know, very
can-do
positive
attitude.
I love it.
Charlotte says, personally, I usually don't want to play pure, no luck, open information, can in principle calculate 20 moves in advanced abstracts. Because that feels too much like work for me. If I want to do hardcore logical thinking, I'll get out my notebook and do some maths research because that's what I do as a job.
Oh, wow. Okay. Time to work. Joel W says, abstracts are fine as long as they are quick and can be played more as a filler. I find thinky abstracts end up making at least one person feel stupid. And not only do I not want to be that guy, I don't even want to be the guy that makes the other person feel stupid. What fun is that? If I'm going to spend an extended amount of time and thought playing a game, it needs to be about something. I need a reason to be doing what I'm doing, even if that reason is just pasted on.
Paste all that glue. John H. says, good abstract games have a perfect balance between minimal rules overhead, quick setup and teardown. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. And intellectual satisfaction. I normally only play with my partner, so the fact that most abstracts are two players is no disadvantage. We play everything from traditional abstracts like chess to more modern hobby abstract games. We are a pretty competitive couple, and abstracts go down well as the winner can lord it over with their pure intellectual superiority. Which is interesting because that goes exactly to what Joel was just saying, where he doesn't want to be that guy.
Right, exactly.
Here's John like, oh, I'll be that guy.
I love it. So many perspectives. I do want to point out the quick setup and teardown, and I was actually going to say this earlier. A lot of the earlier type of abstract games are very basic. Like a few wooden pieces, a board and a few bits. Quick to set up, quick to tear down, and it was basic. Now, I do find the newer ones on the scene are adding a little bit more to kind of pretty them up a little bit, but that is something that I think of. Like, it's bare bones. Therese says, I had to check my work on BGG. I only own 5 of the top 100 abstract games, and I play Quirkle whenever I'm offered the chance. However, while I don't play many abstract games, I do enjoy them. And given that Azul is the #1 abstract game, there must be many people that love abstract games. I do love Azul, but currently my favorite abstract strategy is Sagrada. Interesting. Okay.
Like, Sagrada is really interesting because it's very puzzly. So is there a line between puzzly games or puzzle games and abstract games? Because Sagrada
I never
has
thought
that whole...
Yeah.
Right? That whole... With Sagrada, with Azul, the tiles are the tiles. They come out randomly and get placed out, but everybody sees what they have to work with. There's a limit to those tiles. You know that they're all going to come out before you refresh that bag. With Sagrada, you don't know what you're going to roll.
I never thought of Sagrada as an abstract. Now, I'm not saying I'm right in thinking that. I just never thought of it that way.
See, and I also didn't put it in that category. I put it somehow, I think my brain separates a puzzly game.
Right.
Maybe all abstract games are puzzly, but not all puzzle games are abstract.
Maybe, because I'm same as you. I never would have thought. I thought more of a puzzle. That's exactly how I thought of it. That's interesting. Okay.
John B says, absolutely love abstracts. One advantage they have in getting to the table is that you can literally leave them on the table. A lot of homes have a chess set on display ready to go. You can keep a Clemens Gerhardt's game like Tinnitus. I did not read this before I read
Lies like
Tinnitus, 90 grad or mixed tour on the coffee table, and they look nice and people are attracted to play them.
Okay, well, Brian L. says, I absolutely love abstracts because you get right to the meat of the matter. Typically, they only have a handful of rules, and I love the baldness of it. They stand on strategy and gameplay alone and are still very compelling. While themes often buoy up a game by pairing with rules and mechanics to make a game more interesting or easier to understand, sometimes they can stand in the way if handled poorly.
That's a good point. And finally, N. Jones says, love, love, love abstracts. Low rules overhead, challenging decisions, and race victory conditions are my kind of abstract. Pente, Onitama, Tuluva. Oh, Tuluva.
Tuluva. I didn't even think about that. But I never thought of that as an abstract.
Quarto. Automata Noir, and most of Reiner Knizia Fair are examples of games I have a hard time saying no to. It is really nice to have a game where the rules get out of the way and one can iterate on the subtle elements within the system. So there you have it, a pretty wide range of opinions and points of view on abstract games. Thank you, everybody who took the time to vote in the poll and drop your comments in. You really gave me some new stuff to think about in terms of abstract games.
Oh, me too, because now I have to rethink, hey, maybe I was, wrong in my thinking and have to look at it again. So yeah, that's great.
If you enjoy Victory Points, feel free to let us know a topic that you would like to cover and hear from your fellow Dice Tower listeners on by emailing us. You can send any of your general questions to us or your Victory Points ideas or your favorite pie recipes to Suzanne at dicetower.com.
I like how you snuck that in there.
I'm
or
subtle,
you can also, exactly. You can also send them to me at Mandi, that's Mandi with an I, at dicetower.com.
As always, thank you everybody for joining us. It is always an honor and joy to be able to talk about board games and with you, Mandi, and with all of you. We appreciate every one of you out there listening now. Next episode 605, Tom and Eric talk about the games that got them interested in learning more about the game's setting or theme. Until next time, I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandi Hutchinson.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vazel Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvazel.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandi, and Eric, with assistance from Roy Canaday, Rob Searing, and Jeff Rademacher. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right, we are ready for Two Truths and a Lie. Some exciting stuff here.
Are you going to call us maggots again, Mandy?
You maggots, roll the dice. Oh my gosh, I can't even right now. Memories. Okay, let's jump right in. So, my 3 from last episode, I'm going to start here. I rarely use my air conditioner in the summer. I watch a lot of the Graham Norton show, and I had a friendship end over a game of Uno. So if you said that I had a friendship end over a game of Uno as the lie, that is the correct choice. And I know that is not what everyone thought. Everyone legit thought that was the truth. I guarantee it.
I thought it was the truth. I thought the lie was the Graham Norton show.
Oh my gosh, I love Graham Norton. I watch that all the time. And the air conditioner, I never use it. It's only when the dogs start panting and I'm like, okay, you all need it more than I do, so I'll put it on. But yeah, no, I did not have a friendship end over a game of Uno. Close, but not quite.
Oh, close. I knew it.
What about you, Sus?
Last episode, I cheated a little bit. I said, my new puppy is named Meeple. My new puppy is named Maple. And my new puppy is adorable. And the lie was that the puppy is named Meeple.
Oh.
Her name is Maple. I tried to get my kids to let me name the dog Meeple, and I actually hit some pretty significant resistance from them.
So the dog's Canadian, maybe a little bit?
Not all Maples are Canadian. Come on now.
Okay, I had to try. All right, so we've got some new ones for you this week. I'm going to jump in first. I went to grade school with Alanis Morissette. I played 4 different characters in a school musical. I went to prom wearing a designer dress worth over $800.
Dang, girl.
I know. Fancy.
All right. New for me, I've got thoughts. New for me this week. I hate nori. I hate raw fish. And I hate wasabi.
Okay, I sense a theme. All right, so there you have it, everyone. Good luck.
Thank you to our sponsors at Renegade Games Studios. Check out Revolution of 1828 and all the wonderful Renegade games at renegadegames.com.